Hey, Tom.
Julian, good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
How goes it out
Waiting
there?
room at all. Security. Disable waiting room. There we go.
Morning
Morning, afternoon.
or afternoon, yeah.
Hey, Chris, say something. I don't know if I got you.
Can you hear me? Oh, no.
No, I'm not
Huh.
hearing. Am I hearing? Are you hearing stuff? Maybe it's me.
Okay.
Hold on. Uh, I had a I bricked my little audio box last week trying to update the firmware.
Like a DAC or something?
It's just this little here. I'll pull it out because I'm like, there's got to be. Maybe I can open it up. There's one screw on the bottom. It's just like this little thing. It's just so infuriating. Update your firmware. Like, okay. Oh. Oh well.
My favorite one example of that is when there was like a barbecue on 4th of July that required a firmware update on the morning of 4th of July or something like that. And it was like the least appropriate moment to do a firmware update, I feel.
Hmm.
Hi, Julian.
How you
Uh,
doing?
Good. I've really missed these. I've just been always up and about on a Friday night here in Bombay, so it's been difficult to jump in. But I'm kind of glad I was at my desk today, and I saw the reminder, so I jumped in. How's everyone? Been, I've been mentioning the cards that you have to a lot of people here. A lot of students have been sort of talking about how they want to sort of do a little bit of design fiction and they don't know how to. So I've sort of been sending links, and then I discovered Stuart Candy's kit also today. So I sent to someone else. So it's like this world of speculative design and design fiction keeps opening up a little by little to me, based on what students ask, and not really because I'm discovering anything. But it's fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's like their generations. The generations. Like I think I did the first kit like in 2012, I think. It's just like a little box. And then Stuart did his, and then Superflux has their tarot kind of vibe on it. And then this is not exactly in the same category, and this is like a just a prototype cover, but Dave Gray in the Discord is coming out with his deck, which is a little bit different. It's not. It's like more visualization kind of tools. I hope he's okay me sharing this. I'm pretty sure because he's launching his community. There, I'm not sure if we can. So he's got a different kind of interesting mechanic for, I don't know, for doing stuff. So I just love this stuff because I just love it.
Yeah.
Does he have a name for that set that I can like Google? I want to creep.
It's not he's just literally yesterday we were just kind of going over his website. But you should just ping him, Dre. I mean, I was definitely thinking about, I was like, oh, Dre will have one of these just cuz.
Yeah, because I'm obsessed with cards. I see Jason's in the chat. He's also obsessed with cards. And Chris just flashed his collection. So I'm like, I'm going to do that for the next office hours. Just have my collection ready to
These are only the 4 that are at my desk. I have like a box full of like 40 of them down below.
I've got a bin of them too.
I got these two because I use them a lot, but
well, yeah, I have the traditional tarot deck that I use a lot for like strategy conversations. And then IDK by Von Tan, which is more about like training on comfort and training in uncertainty. And then this is one from Triggers, which is more about user centric. But I help them write the machine learning deck that they have as well. So I don't know. I'm a big believer of these types of decks.
Hey, if
Yeah.
you guys ever want to
Um,
do a deck, I mean, just let's just talk about it because we got it. We have all the tooling.
Yeah.
I couldn't. You know, it was. I don't know. Maybe it was just easier to just do it on my own, but I couldn't quite rally the troops to work on the latest one.
Oh
Um,
shit. I didn't hear the rally. I would have jumped on that.
Yeah, there was a whole channel. I mean, you just probably just flew by, and then I was just,
Yeah.
I got so anxious. I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna grind this out. But it's a since we're like in this hyper collaborative mode, it's I don't want to make you feel like you.
I see. Is that that I know those ones, Tom. I own those ones. I can't remember.
These are great, aren't they? These are Jesse Shell's cards.
Oh
They're
yeah,
good.
yeah. Jesse
Oh, okay,
Shell's
yeah,
great.
yeah. They're sitting in my cart. Someone was telling me to.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah, he's the guy that coined the term gamification.
Yeah.
Dre, you should reach out to just ping Dave Gray in the Discord
Okay, I'm gonna look him up.
because he's booting up his community.
Um, for someone like me who's pretty new to this, and in the context that I operate, it'd be really nice to sit down and write down what these sets are, then maybe ask the institute to order some. Like when I visit to teach, I can just ask them to keep in the library, because when I try to run a project, I was blank and I was just cooking up stuff along the way. I'm like, okay, imagine something changes in the future, but maybe only a technology changes, something doesn't. And I realized that there's this whole history of knowledge that has been codified that people have been using across the world, which now that I look at all the decks you'll have, I'm like, it'd be nice to play with it for a while. And there's a lot of students who ask, but I've not known. So I'm really glad you guys have shown this right now. And I might write to you, Chris, maybe, and Tom, and just ask if I can get a list of these things and ask the institute to buy a few.
I mean, the
These
one
are-
that
These are some of my originals. This is Brian Eno's
Oh yeah,
oblique strategies, but I have modified my oblique strategies box with
Nice.
with an Imagine Harder sticker. So
Yeah, I'm developing the oblong strategies.
oblong.
I keep the oblique in my
Adjacent
backpack.
strategies.
adjacent strategies.
Yeah.
That sounds like Edward de Bono, huh?
Flanking maneuvers.
There's Saban, there's a bunch of print and play stuff like Julian mentioned Stewart's deck. It's called The Thing from the Future. And that's a print and play. You can just look up The Thing from the Future and you can download the PDF. I created a deck called Strategic Science Fiction. So that's at strategicsci-fi.com. And there's a print and play that you can just download there, PDF with some instructions. So yeah, there's some very immediate things that you can print, quickly chop up and start using.
Thank you. I think that'd be really helpful. I've sort of been wondering what to do with my time because finding work is taking a long time. So I have a feeling the whole daily exercises, maybe not daily, but once a week. I don't know how you do daily, guys. I just honestly don't know, but it'd be a lot of fun. So yeah, thank you. This is great. Lovely.
Cool.
Dre, have you ever thought about using Game Crafter? Because they
Yes.
do just-in-time printing. If you want like something more nicer, because I'm not very good with an X-Acto knife.
I have a thing here called the random direction, which is just a 6-sided die that's north, south, east, west, left, and right. So the idea is that you just keep it in your pocket, and when you're out for a walk, you just roll it and you take whatever random direction that it gives you.
But yeah, I had a deck.
And I've used them to do some of my strategic science fiction cards. I have a couple of decks that I've produced for workshops many years ago. But the Game Crafter is great because it's not just a production company, but it's a full community of game enthusiasts. So you can upload your game and tons of people will be super happy to play test it and offer opinions so long as you do the same to their games.
Yeah, because like Thing from the Future, I was thinking about trying to get it up there somehow, but I don't want to like, trample on copyright or anything. So.
Yeah, I mean, it is a print and play. I'm Jason in the chat here. He introduced me to Tabletop Simulator, on Steam, and he's prototyped board games on Tabletop Simulator, and we play quite often. And I started doing my strategic science fiction deck in Tabletop Simulator, and it's a fantastic way to prototype, but it's also a great way to just get a bunch of people together playing a card game collectively and collaboratively. And it also supports VR. So if you have an Oculus set, you can just deal cards like you're in the metaverse or something, some metaverse poker tournament. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm old school like you. I've got the Oculus Quest 2 as well. Or the Quest 1.
It's not that hard to make tabletop simulator stuff. You just need to download a template and upload it, and it's pretty much good to go.
I used to work at Facebook Reality Labs, and so there was one product manager circle I was part of where we only ever met in virtual reality for about 6 months, and yeah, it was weird. There were like three out of the 6 people I never saw their face, or I saw their avatar. I didn't see the real face for a long time.
Was it 6 months continuously? Because that would be.
Yeah, it was like 6 months every other week, basically.
Oh. Okay, with breaks.
Yeah. It was only a one-time meeting. It wasn't like fully immersed like for 6 months total. I think I would be blind.
Drops, yeah.
But it's funny that some people put a lot of effort into their avatar and to like either match themselves, but then other people just hit like the random button, and so they'll show up with like a clown fro and like big glasses and then a shiny shirt, and then there's other people that are just like wearing a polo and it looks kind of like them. So there's like a clear distinction between what people care about in that context.
Yeah. Sometimes some people like to represent themselves virtually the way that they look physically, and others just like to watch the world burn.
The reason why I came today is I'm about halfway through the manual, and I've been using PRFAQs, and you mentioned that in kind of the first part of the book. And I wanted to maybe ask, if people don't mind, like how do you make PRFAQs more design fiction-y? Because I feel like a lot of the time they don't talk a lot about controversy or debates. I did try to slip in something that is like the wait, what was that type of thing in my first paragraph of what I just wrote, which was, as you know, in the recent Supreme Court case between FDA versus OpenAI, we need to be more careful about about regulation of prompts, basically. And so but just left it at that. So I've been trying to push myself a little bit more to include more of these like little pieces, but I wondered if people had experimented with PRFAQs and they found them valuable. And again, I'm just trying to, like, as a product manager, I try to use these types of things, but I want to make them a little bit more provocative. And so I just wanted to like ask about that, if people had done anything around those types of tools.
You know, each archetype. So the press release is one archetype, is suited for different contexts, and it's always been my we generally, people like sort of celebrate the whole Amazon thing, like we do press release, that's how we pitch a project kind of thing. But the challenge of the press release is that it's written by a press officer who has no incentive to say anything controversial, right? So it works well in that context where there is no, and so effectively, as a design fiction archetype,
That's
it can
fair.
only function maybe. I would use it more in a kind of, just a thin level of irony. It's like, where this is coming from, the voice that this is articulated in. So if you can push that to the other side, you can imply the challenges that the PR person has. Like, okay, you're going to earn your money today. That thing that happened, you need to spin that just into.
Well, and one other piece of information, right? Like, we do a lot of internal stuff. And so, yeah, the press release doesn't make sense because we would not hire a comm person to like write this thing. And so we've been starting to experiment with, like, there's a newsletter that's internal that does announcements. And so we've been using that. Another one that I think has been fairly effective is like this, like an email from one vice president to another thanking them for something. And anyway, so like we're still trying to like experiment, but I 100% agree with you. I think like this idea of like the really pure kind of glossy press release is probably really bad.
And
But,
if you do it, then also along with that is the back in the day it would have been the newspaper clipping, paper clipped to the press release. Like, okay, I got your response, John. I think this will do. If a VP said like, did you see this? Like, what is our response? Let's go to the war room, and then skip the PR guys. Like, I got it. Just take it easy. It's fine. I know you got your golf tee off time in 20 minutes. I'll have something by the time you're on the 9th hole. Okay, Jesus, please. I pay you a lot of money. A lot of money.
I like that. I'll try that next time.
Yeah. Yeah. Should we do just do quickly kind of like project updates? I know, so Fred and I talked yesterday. That's Fred there up in Glasgow. I talked to a couple people this week and I said, come to office hours, because maybe just kind of getting into the routine of where we at, what's going on kind of thing with various projects. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I mean, I can kick it off. I can talk about solar punk for a quick second.
Yeah, let's do that.
Cool. So there's
and you just might need a little bit of because some people would be like,
context.
"It's solar what?"
Solar punk. Yeah. So on the Discord, there's a channel called the ABCs of Solar Punk. This is a project that started with the idea that that futures thinking should be taught like at an early age in school to help people imagine harder about positive, desirable futures that they would like to get into. So we thought, well, why not just make a kid's book? So we took the trope of the ABCs book. We decided to make it around solar punk, which is similar to steampunk. It's a futures aesthetic that is around renewable energy and sustainable futures. So we started writing these ABCs. So David Murphy and I are the showrunners on this project. And we just went from ABC. Every letter is a learning experience, is a word related to the solar punk movement that teaches you something about it. And we have words like biomimicry, talking about design inspired by nature, but we also recognize that this isn't really a kid's book. This looks like a kid's book. It is a kid's book in disguise, designed for adults to look at it, but also believing that if a child can say the word velociraptor, they can also say biomimicry. So let's not dumb it down. Let's give them some good stuff. And it's all rendered with beautiful illustrations. So at any rate, we're at a point where every word has been chosen. We've got descriptions on every word. Every word has been rendered. I have an editor who is going through all of the copy now, and she's reading it for legibility, consistency. The book itself is a piece of design fiction. We're writing it as if it comes from that solar punk future. So everything is written in the present tense. And any reference to old technologies or fossil fuels is written in the past tense. Like, this is something we used to do. We've replaced it with this new thing we do now in our solar punk renewable, equitable world. So at any rate, the update is that we are at a point where the letters are done. It's being edited. We're now finessing the core content of the book, and the plan is to write an introduction and a foreword, thinking about possibly like an epilogue to like just kind of continue the story, because I feel like there's something that's needed to continue that conversation. The letter Z rolls back into the letter A again, just encouraging to continue reimagining that alphabet in that future. So I want to talk to Jay Springett about writing something. I'd like to get Andrew Dana Hudson to write something, because he's got his climate futures book that he wrote. I think he would write something really good there. And yeah, I think if we can figure out some intros and some outros, design a nice cover, we're getting close to having a PDF that is going to be almost production ready. And that's the update there.
Jason, were you going to say something?
I just had a crazy idea. What could you like create a limited edition with a solar panel cover that could charge up your devices?
That's a really good idea. Yeah, you know what? That's something. I mean, I feel like once we print the book, we could. There's nothing. That's a what do you call it? The dust jacket. You could literally do it to 10 books. Just build 10 books, building a solar panel with a really small charge regulator, and you can just buy that from Adafruit or something like that. That could be a good, just for the PR. You know, we don't have to give it to anybody. Just make it so that it exists somehow. I like that idea. Thanks, man. Another update is Julian, you were talking about doing the work kit live stream session.
Oh yeah, can I just ask just say something about the solar punk?
Yeah,
ABC
please do.
solar punk. When you start getting when with your conversation, if you're going to print it with Ken, who I recommend,
Yeah, I will.
if you're keep me in the loop on that in terms of, because if you're getting close, what am I trying to say? So with the last batch of books that we did with them, I just kept piling extra books on, because I was like, if he's doing it, and then we can consolidate and save a bundle on shipping,
Mhm.
per book.
Yeah.
Because I'll, there are plenty of book projects in my head, and I can just grind another one out, and then we
Mhm.
can have even more stuff.
Yeah.
So let's just say in lockstep on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll definitely, I'll keep you in the loop on that. I haven't initiated a conversation yet with him to say, okay, we're ready to go, but I've got some information from him about stuff. But yeah, it's definitely a learning experience to see that shipping a book is almost the same amount as making the book.
Yeah. And there were some good lessons learned on this last one. The whole building an airplane while we're flying it kind of thing,
Mhm.
which is that the logistics tooling is still something that is we're evolving and testing stuff. So we've got a third party logistics outfit in South Carolina, and then we decided kind of midway that we're going to still use the one that we use for the manual
Mhm.
that is in Berlin. And then I'm talking to a third guy who's going to do it. He's going to do a data analysis on all that to see if we can optimize better, because it's logistics is like a total, it's just a conflagration, just like a raging kitchen grease fire when it comes to doing that kind of stuff. And so yeah, just always trying to optimize that. So so next time what we would end up doing, like we do ABC and maybe there's another book or two or something at that point in time, is basically split the shipment out, because right now it's like on a boat coming to Los Angeles. Then when it gets to Los Angeles, then I've got my guy at Dolphin Logistics who's going to split it and send half of them to Germany and then half of them to South Carolina. And I'm not sure that's the most efficient, but I didn't know I was going to be sending stuff to Germany when I initiated the first one. Anyway, that's just these things matter. I mean, there's the work isn't done when you got. I mean, I'm not saying that you think this, but when you get the PDF done, there's still as much, if not more, work to do, signing powers of attorney to shipping outfits. And this morning I got text messages from our guy Grace Brokers, who's brokering the shipments from Istanbul. He's like, "Who's this?" I was just like, "Don't play around, man. It's me." It's like, "Oh, sorry, I was confused." Like, don't tell me the ship is sinking.
Wait,
Uh,
did I catch that? Wait, they're coming here and then to Germany? Because is that because you didn't know they're going to Germany first before?
I thought I was going to just be shipping the books that Ken is printing. I thought I was just going to be shipping them from the US, and then but then sort of Patrick and I made decisions like, well, we should use that place we used in Germany. They were really good. And I think the logistics, um it was too much for me to process. I was like, I just let's just keep it simple. But and at some point I guess I relaxed because I wasn't trying to edit 3 books at once. And I was like, okay, well, let's do that. And it's going to cost a little bit more to actually get them to Germany. Um, but it'll be way more efficient. And also probably significantly more reliable for delivery to to the
Europe.
to Europe, and they're a little bit more efficient. Getting stuff out of the US is just, it can be a little bit of a pain. And
I was just going to say, I tried to ship the book from UK to places, and now like UK is very hard to get to from Europe if you also want to sell stuff there.
does the channel get wider or what? Oh, no, Brexit. Sorry. That's right.
It's Brexit, but it's just like no one is used to paying import duty on
Yeah.
stuff. People leave it at the post office and it gets returned.
Yeah. That actually, that's happened a number of times. Yeah, I get it. It's a little bit surprising. It's kind of like, well, I mean, they said what to do.
Absolute nightmare.
Yeah. So it's a good note because it's something that I've seen other small operators just kind of have that go out, message people multiple times, like, don't take it for granted that just because you ordered it, you're done and it's going to show up on your lap with a brandy and a cigar. A little bit more work to do. And then there's always the thing. It's like, wait, VAT? And it's just like, man, if I could eliminate taxes, I'd be a very powerful individual, but I can't. You got to pay taxes.
There are payment platform options that allow you to give people the chance to pay their taxes at checkout, which just puts that decision front and center. So obviously their sticker price goes up, but it removes that next step later on. So if you want to chat about that offline, we can dig into that a little bit. I believe the platform that I use, Easy Ship, allows for that.
Yeah, I looked at Easy Ship for a minute on your advice. And there's some plugin that my current 3PL said, or something that we could use, and to look in that again. At the time, it just seemed like, wait, more work? No, just gonna.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It never ends. The whole goes and goes and goes.
It doesn't. It's kind of enthralling though, because it's kind of like, wow, people are getting stuff that we made. That's kind of cool. Cool. Thanks for that, Dre. You wanted to yap about, what was the other thing? Oh, what was it, the show?
The design fiction, the show, if you will. There was a couple. Well, Julian and I talked about the idea of, let's do a live stream where we work through the work kit, and I've done some elaborate posts on my site doing a work kit session where I basically walked through my thought process, and Julian and I did it on the Near Future Lab podcast. So at any rate, I've been thinking about it and looking forward to it. I'm even thinking like maybe like next Wednesday might be a good day to do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
And but in typical fashion, I like to always take it a little bit extra difficult and hard, and not hard, but
I know you were saying I'm almost done with my 3D render of the background. It's like, wait, what? It's just a TV.
Yeah. So anyway, so this is my this is where I'm thinking right now. I was like, okay, I'm gonna render out the janky time machine. Yeah. All the screens have some like glitches on them. There's 2 small monitors where we can see who's participating. So Julian and I, that'll be us doing our screen. And then there's the porthole window, which right now I'm just using a photo, but I've got a little spot on my desk reserved for a webcam to point at. And
we'll use the new kit. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll use the new kit. Yeah, this is the one that I had immediately next to
Yeah,
me.
sure.
Well, I'm sorry, it was an old photo from a previous work kit session. So yeah, I'm going to clear off a little spot on my desk. The webcam's going to point down there. It'll be real time. I'll be able to move the cards around. We'll be able to put that wild card that
I'm
you put in
so
there as well.
excited. I'm
Oh,
so excited about this.
It'll look good. So I've got my Design Fiction Daily down there. I want to get maybe a vector graphic of what you for Near Future Lab. I know you've got your new little logo, so I'll make sure that I put it in there as well. But we'll do an NFL and DFD co-stream, and what I'm going to do probably this weekend is figure out how do I make this happen on Twitch. So
Yeah.
if you want to just tune in and watch on Twitch, and then Twitch can be where the chat happens, or maybe it becomes a YouTube live session where we open up a chat. I'm going to experiment with a couple things and see which one's the easier one to do. But
Yeah, no, let's do this. And I'm super anxious about it, not only because it'll be fun, but also because there's like, I would say like maybe 3 out of every 100 work kits that are out there in the world, someone will send a note, and I'm trying to empathize with it, but like, I don't get how to use this. And to
Mhm.
me, it seems like entirely obvious, but also I study the situationists, and I get the idea of like unstructured play and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
which is basically the mode of my entire childhood. Even when Monopoly got pulled out, it was like, forget the rules, let's just figure this something out.
Yeah.
So having something that shows people just but for an example, like this is how Dre and I are using it. And it's not too hard. I mean, you can stray from what I think is implied by the work kit, and that's even described in the instructions, which people are like, I can't find the instructions. God bless them. God bless them. Because they're probably looking for a pamphlet, and it's like, I printed them on the cards. But I think this would also, I think it would also help us um, on sales, which helps us all, because then we've got more Mazuma to do fun projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so speaking of sales, I think they're about, like 500 or 5 or 600 have sold. Um, so that the gross is like, I don't know, something like 35 grand or something, which is amazing. So to just give like other showrunners a sense of the size of the audience, and I'm not really trying that hard, to be honest, to sell them. I need to try harder, but every time like I do a post about it, just like a Instagram story or something like that, you get sales. I mean, it's a very obvious mechanic. And if I were a full-time salesperson, I feel quite confident that we would have already sold out. So the reason I'm saying that is that, so for those of you who don't know the way things operate, it's like, if you're a showrunner, 80% of the net, so that's like after like all the logistics and costs and that kind of stuff, goes to the showrunner. And the showrunner or showrunners, I'm trying to take the burden off of me of trying to figure out like, how do we divvy this up amongst people. So it's like, no, it's your problem. So showrunners, basically be like, okay, so what do we want to do with this? And they're like all good all good Hollywood showrunners. They could be like, I'm fuck you guys, I'm gonna get myself a new toaster oven or something like that. Or they could be like, hey, let's divide this up. And the 80-20 thing is just like an experiment, totally an experiment. I'm not sure if it'll work, or if people will start protesting, but it's like roughly like an inversion of the 20-80, which is like the people who do the work at 20%, and the CEO who, he's on the eighth hole, gets the 80%. And so just trying to see if that would actually work, so that the 20% comes back to the Near Future Laboratory. So that's effectively, me as a representative of an entity that's got lots of expenses, bills, and servers and all that kind of stuff. And just see if that actually creates a sustainable model, so that as representative of the creative consciousness of the Near Future Laboratory Discord, might be like, I don't know, we've been having these conversations. This particular idea feels like a project. let's have a conversation and see if that actually feels consistent with the near future laboratory vibe, and this idea of we make products from the future. And so there are a couple other projects of that sort. One is there's a Drew who is running the magazine from the future. What is it? Fashion magazine from the future. So as if Variety, not Variety, I don't know, Vogue, a Vogue magazine from the future as a way to kind of feel into what a possible future of fashion might be, including like maybe fashion has changed, maybe the meaning of fashion has evolved. And so we were talking earlier in the week, just having a coffee in the morning, and he was sitting there laying out the flat plan for the magazine, and he was just like kind of literally had a copy of Vogue or something next to him, and he's like, okay, what do they do page by page? What kinds of articles do they have, and that kind of stuff? And he was like, okay, page 60, that's the end of the advertisements, because those magazines, they've got like the first third of them are just advertisements, which is amazing. So as a way of kind of emulating and ways of representing the things, whatever is transacted and what what kinds of things are represented. So that's a super fun one. And then there's the Green Pages, which is sort of like a magazine or something from the future of entertainment. So that's another one that Florian and Thomas are showrunners on. What other projects are I'm spacing out? I mean, there's androids, but what is there something else? Oh, then there's Kemp's.
Oh yeah,
Short
coat.
So we're going to make a actual garment for the future. And sorry, the idea is that we actually manufacture these things. So a lot of print stuff, because we figured out the tooling to actually manufacture and distribute and sell that stuff. And also it's nice and portable and doesn't require CE certifications for electronics and stuff. But there is a watch project.
I mean, there is also Trip City, which is kind of a project finding thing. So Aaron's project in changing policy and finding grants and doing that stuff. And there's other little things that I think are really useful. Like I really like everyday archetypes, and this is something to continue to like firm up.
That would be a good. I need to talk to Isabella.
Yeah,
because I feel like that could be the short, sharp, quick book sprint that I do to just get another book project with.
Well, I've been making some headway on that as well, because I refer to her Pinterest board a lot, and I also I have an Airtable database of all my design fiction dailies, and I categorize the archetype on every single one. And so I'm starting to see the patterns and see where I'm leaning more towards and forcing myself to do other things.
It'll be beautiful. Everyday archetypes, either one or two. So everyday archetypes. So what I always imagined was like every archetype as if it were like a field guide, like those field guide to birds. So just here are all the archetypes, just a book of archetypes.
Yeah.
Sort of
the
like
Audubon field to archetypes. Yeah,
not exactly like these, but these are books like this is Airline Ephemera, and it's just filled with page after page of
that's great
airline stuff in that realm of things. But then also the Design Fiction Daily Annual. Like these are all the projects that that Dre has done in Design Fiction Daily in a little booklet.
Would be really awesome would be like the archetype shoebox, and you buy the shoebox, and in the shoebox there's a sample archetype of a little design. Oh, here's a little user manual, here's a postcard, here's a driver's license, here's a whatever. Anything that is like anything that fits in the box becomes the do you remember Griffin and Sabine? Do you remember those books?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Like that, you open the book, there's an envelope, you pull out the letter, and there's a little charm in there, and that would be a wonderful archetypes collectible.
Yeah, so many projects.
When you were mentioning that you can have this collection at the end of the year, I just wondered if that collection is printed as if it's a throwback from 15 years in the future. Like, oh, in 2023, these people made these design fiction objects thinking this is going to be the future, and look how wrong they were, or look how silly they were. Sort of like, just some.
No, that's good. I like that idea. I don't know yet. I say that I've got enough content now. I can probably make a book. I don't know what that book would be. I don't know if I would stay within character of how I write on the blog, or whether I would deconstruct thinking behind it. I'm still working on what I might do there. But I do like the idea of looking at it as publishing it like a time capsule to be reviewed in the future, to be critiqued. Because there's a lot of that, like even in the design fiction channel, I posted an image to a screen grab from the movie Her, and in the background there's an LA transit map, and I stopped to look at it, and I don't know enough about Los Angeles, so I had to send a message and say, hey, how much does this transit map look accurate, or what would have changed considering that the movie was created in 2013? So it looks like they did do a few things to that transit map to feel into that. What does it look like? Because that movie's set in 2025.
Oh yeah, that was the question you asked about, to zoom in on the LA map, LA transit map. Yeah.
Yeah, I was doing like a design fiction,
Yeah.
just reviewing Her and being like, okay, what design fiction can I find in that movie? Surprisingly, not a lot.
Yeah, yeah. It's which is a kind of a testament to the, who is that, Spike Jonze?
Spike Jonze. Well, you know what I realized was that the design fiction in that movie is all audio.
Hmm.
It's all interaction. It's all mannerisms. Like he plays a video game and he does this with his fingers. That's how he controls the video game. And I thought, like, that's a behavior that's kind of interesting. And then just the commands, the way that he speaks to this AI OS has some nice design fiction feel to it, because it's like the archetype is the user behavior, I guess.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is some of what he's saying is what we're doing right now with ChatGPT. And some of what happens in that movie is what's starting to happen now with GPT-based systems like Replica, like people falling in love with their AIs, or having a relationship with their AI and then being devastated when that AI is then, lobotomized because of some regulation or fear that people are getting addicted to it.
Yeah. Aaron, did you want to say anything about Trip City?
Yeah, happily. Hello, everybody. All the new faces, welcome. Okay, Trip City is a sort of wide-ranging project inspired by a desire for the world to be, the built environment to be ready to meet small-wheeled mobility devices where they're at. Skateboards designed for travel often have 66mm wheels or smaller. And most of the built environments designed around cars, with the other archetypes often being walking and biking. Bikes obviously have large wheels, and if you're an able-bodied ambulatory person, you can step over most cracks. So the skateboard finds allegiances with people in wheelchairs, walkers, crutches, etc. So we're using the skateboard as sort of an archetypal small-wheeled mobility device to champion smoother textures and transitions, and reimagine bike lanes and sidewalks more in a framework of, say, mid-speed mobility, so that we can, make environments with affordances for all. So the project has taken sort of a bunch of different turns at various times. I've applied for grants to attach sensors to skateboards. I've applied for grants to develop a mid-speed mobility framework that we could present to small municipalities. There's been just a kind of a number of different things. I myself run a skateboard company and teach skateboarding to 5 to 11-year-olds. So I have found that like the sort of tools of the Near Future Laboratory is really helpful, and also just all the brilliant minds in here, really great collaborators. So the Trip City thread is sort of a mix of, people chiming in at various times, and I'm kind of just like journaling various engagements with like City Hall and policy planners and things like that. Having a good time with that. So I applied most recently for a grant to advise the town of Bristol, Rhode Island, which is where we make our skateboards, to present sort of a new lens for their bicycle plan that they have in place. We didn't get the grant, but there's nonetheless a lot of interest in the idea of a mid-speed mobility framework. So probably the next step would be to get the various stakeholders that we already have involved together and do a general seminar of sorts. I own midspeedmobility.com. So that is sort of the archetype that I'm sort of trying to lean into, is like what does it look like to have, say, like a framework for design for these things that anybody can go to, and that you can go to your city hall meeting, say, hey, here's this website, you can download some boilerplate legislation or some architectural drawings and things like that. This exists a little bit more in the present moment than some of the other stuff that we're doing here, I would say, because the idea here is to offer people tools that they can use to make change now. So that sort of like tread that line a little bit. But the hope is to make a bunch of different types of things that could be assets for this. So if you're interested in being involved, I would say like there's opportunities to come up with different projects together if you know different grant programs and whatnot. But yeah, I think that the next step with this is to put together a meeting of some various minds. I made a document that's been shared around recently with just sort of a general framework for what mid-speed mobility looks like. And I'm looking to have a broader discussion that we can record and then pull from that to start to put together a website. I guess the other update with it is I've been doing these audit rides with the SFMTA in San Francisco. They're in the midst of doing a active communities plan, called as such because they're trying to cater to more than just bicycles, if not just because it opens them up to different grant funding. And just like state monies, like, if you just cater to bikes, there's not as much money available as if you're also including wheelchairs and things like that. So I've been showing up on my skateboard just to do the rides with the person who's leading these, and he's duly convinced that skateboards are necessary as something to plan for. Often just like the ways in which the built environment is made right now, they just don't account for the small transitions. So there's architectural drawings that have like lips that are an inch high, and that doesn't really work for skateboarding. So, the questions are around like, is it just a matter of like making small changes today, or is it like completely reimagining what it looks like when you're no longer thinking in terms of the bike lane and the sidewalk? So maybe there's brochures to be made, or various other things to be circulated. But it's sort of it's a project sort of in want of various archetypes to kind of live into. So all ideas are welcome for things that could be fun to do. I know that we've got some people who are working on green pages who are finishing up school for the year and stuff like that, who are ready to dig in a little more, maybe make some films and things like that. And I've got a lot of photographs of my students. So there's definitely something to be done there. Yeah, that's the latest.
Cool. The second printing of the manual is it's one of the logistics things, but this is a approval copy. It's the same thing, only it's paperback. And they're two surprise dust jacket covers. This is one of them. This is commissioned from the artist Julian Montague. So I'm excited about that. And then there's Jed. Jed, do you want to talk about the Androids book? So there's a book, another book. It's really hard to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I never got your opinion. Did it look great or good?
This
Yeah.
fucking awesome, man. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Like
Good.
they got the this is our printer. They just dialed it in. It's got. I wanted something that felt like a mass market paperback, but was premium.
Yeah.
Try describing that to someone whose native language isn't English. But he got it. We sent lots of paper samples back and forth. and it even has like a section in the center that's like images. So it's a paper switch, which I've never done before.
Yeah, that's
But he
cool.
has. But then it has all these kind of like whack-a-mole problems because it's like it has to be it has to be I think it was a multiple of 4 to get it was anyway. It was a beautiful production headache.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the book, if you couldn't read it, is called Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. And what's the subtitle?
An analysis of the artificial psyche. And so and then the art was done by Kate McMillan, who is also part of the Discord. And it's a if you Google "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep," the PK Dick, you'll see probably like one of the first paperback editions. I think it was only paperback that has this same sheep image, but it's not. The sheep has an old, or I guess it's not old, but a UK style plug, and so we replaced it with an RJ45 connector, and took one of Jed's sheep, which again it's hard to see, but but they're these cybernetic sheep.
yeah.
So the
There's
idea is we went to the future and we found this book, and it's not a novel so much as a handbook that you might get if you're trying to understand, you have these pop psychology things you pick up at the airport. It's kind of like understanding, the nuances of your child's development or something. But it's a I ChatGPT and I kind of analyzed the PK Dick in the as a statement of fact as opposed to a statement of fiction. Do you guys remember this? Time will remember this. Like back in the day, you would have like a paperback book, and in the back it'd be like, if you like this title, then perhaps you would like these other titles from us. And so there's a whole list of all these other titles from the same publisher, with a little thing to send in, with 50 cents in a self-addressed stamped envelope, and we'll send you our catalog.
Does the address resolve to real? Like if somebody sends 50 cents in a self-addressed stamped envelope, do you reply?
I kind of like sluice around the actual physical address, but I did put a QR code, which I don't remember what it goes to. I guess I could check. I think I also want to, have a loop back to us, and to that kind of thing. And there is a burner phone number. There's a phone number. It's one of my burners. I'm so excited about this. I hope people like get the joke. And all these fake reviews.
The reviews are funny.
There's a review from an implied sci-fi scoop dog. Some guy's got a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of reviews from blockchain addresses with no one's name.
Yeah, the backstory to the book a little bit would be, I guess it started with Mid-Journey images that Julian was doing with his vehicles, and he asked me if I'd been messing with it much, and I hadn't, and he kind of probed me to do so, and so I started with some prompts that were, I asked Julian what some of the prompts were, or one that he was using just to get a sense of how it all works. And I started replacing cars with sheep. And, that sparked this idea of these electric sheep. And it referred back to, I started sharing the sheep a bit amongst a few of us. One person was my stepfather, who's a big fan of Philip K. Dick, and sent that cover, or the original cover of the Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and that's where Julian, I think, ran with the idea of, well, hey, maybe we can do a companion part to this whole electric sheep thing with a book. And it first arrived at cards. I didn't say that. So the other idea was to do some trading cards based on on these sheep. And so the cards in the book became sort of two facets to the collaboration. And that's the book. The cards are in process. They're pretty close. Really, it's most of the layouts are done, and I think we're just kind of working on some of the content, some of the descriptions, for the most part, and then some other ideas of what could also go along with a book, and some cards are in the works.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's just totally organic. It's just kind of like, hey, Jed, have you played with this? And then now we've got a paperback book from some weird world, and we're making some cards. When I saw that book, I was just like, I mean, obviously I'm a book person. I was like, I just want that book on my shelf. I felt like if someone did this, I would have it in a second. Just that idea of, I don't know, just set me on a trajectory, which I love. So much different from like your, not that I have a manager, I could probably use one every once and again, but it's like the manager coming to you and saying like, hey, do this. And you're just like, it sounds like a terrible project. And so anytime I feel like a project where it's like, man, I want that, even if I only make one, I want it. Because it's just such a powerful expression of imagination. And now I've got it. Actually, I've got more than one. So now the work is to try to get them out in the world. Awesome. Yeah, so Jed, so we just need to I feel like a lot is on me, and not a bad way, to kind of grind on those descriptions. So the trading cards are, you imagine like a sports trading card kind of archetype, where it's like there's the the sports hero or whatever, or the Pokemon character, and then there's like descriptive text that kind of gives some context to it. And I don't know if Jed has like any ideas about it being, if there's a mechanic to it, like any kind of game mechanic.
Well, are you asking, or just
Just kind of wondering.
yeah, well, you mean as far as, well, there was initial let's call it like a data mechanic, maybe not a game, but just a sort of a visual mechanic to collecting trading cards, I guess you could say. It's kind of like a rarity mechanic to the images of sheep, and then the information about them, or the data set, in a sense, which involves a description that Julian's up to, and then I sort of filled in a range of information about sheep's, kind of with our dialogue back and forth. For example, like hoof modifications, or just their breed, because a lot of the images are all images are based on different breeds of sheep, as far as where the prompting comes in play to generate the images. So there's like sort of a rule set in place that sort of helps kind of manage and organize all the data. And service, there's a Google Doc spreadsheet about that. Dre's been helping a lot with sort of organizing that information on the back of the card. And then the front of the card basically is just more about the sheep themselves. And so there is, I think that ultimately it would probably be nice for people that get the cards and are interested in a collecting mechanic to be able to go find out information about that somewhere. And I'm assuming that's going to be some kind of digital place, like a web page or something. So they could dive into that, if that's, I guess that's sort of the game, if they want to do so. Following along the lines of kind of traditional playing cards, I think, with like baseball stats for people, or Star Wars cards, or whatever it might be about a storyline. So yeah, that's but it is very structured as far as the information. Earlier on, there's a bunch of diagrams that kind of like map this out visually, because most of the thinking around the building of the sheep is from a visual kind of process. It's sort of setting up rule sets, and then working within them. And so that's more or less, I would say, what we call a game. There's like a dock. I think it's pinned to the channel of the Android stream, and it kind of shows like our process and sort of the visual layout of stuff, and it has, you know, it has sort of a visual mapping of a lot of what I kind of probably described a bit.
Yeah.
Um,
I might be also working through a mess of permission issues. So if anyone's not able to see these channels, just kind of just DM me.
yeah, I can see that one now, Julian.
But did something change? I'm just trying to get feedback.
Here, I'll take a quick look. ABC looks good. I see that. Did you remove the Saul Lewitt one?
Yeah, I put that in the basement. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that one's, I don't see. I think that was the only, I mean, I didn't know that I was missing this until.
Yeah, because you never saw it. Yeah, I don't.
I mean, I think I saw it at one point. I did notice that some things changed maybe a week or two ago.
Okay.
But I didn't like the Saul Lewitt one. I'm like, maybe he put that in the basement. I wasn't sure. But then I'm like, wait a minute, Dre's talking about this channel I don't see now.
Yeah.
So
Wait, which? Oh yeah, yeah. The ABC sold one. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to. I don't know. I feel like I need to
was
make it
there,
cleaner.
yeah, was there a channel? I felt like on our last community call, there was a channel where people were posting stuff just in general during the discussion, not like in the Zoom, but
Oh yeah, there's office hours, chat log.
chat log. Okay, yes, that is back. I think that was missing for me too. I see that again.
So weird.
Yeah. So whatever you pushed, I think got me back to where it was.
Okay. All right. Well, if any, just don't assume that there's a problem with your network connection or something like that. It's probably me, almost certainly, not um, not not knowing really how to be a custodian of Discord's permissions shit show. Cool. So just two other projects, I think. So there's the Androids book, and then there's the 10th anniversary edition of TBD catalog, which came in, which I'm super excited about, just because it's fucking bonkers, and I finally got the cheesy catalog glossy thing going, which I'm excited about, and this is like a light update of the existing catalog, and just kind of replace some things that I was never really super excited about. It just felt like they needed to be updated. So here's some advertisements that when Dre did Party Ball. And yeah, oh yeah, and then Ari Birnbaum's, because maybe there was no metaverse as we understand it today. So I made Ari's like the real estate mogul for I refer to as the underverse now. It's not the metaverse, it's the underverse. It's where all the salacious stuff happens.
We pick up
So
copies of it yet, or is it?
it's not yet. These are just approval copies, but they're on their way.
Okay.
So super excited about that. It's got just getting having more fun with like gatefold, and people are kind of like, ooh, that's nice, gatefold. And then that's an image of us, basically, of Near Future Laboratories Regional Manufacturing and Research Expeditionary Unit, Western Divisional Provisional Headquarters, open Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, 9 to 3, Friday, 10 to noon, or by appointment. Psyched about that. And then this is my follow-on book to the Manual of Design Fiction called "It's Time to Imagine Harder." The Reader's Guide to the Manual of Design Fiction. I just love that idea that a book needs a reader's guide. How do I read this thing? I'm having a little trouble. And so it's more of a when at the at when the book finally got out in the world, so you imagine the context of basically like 3 authors. I would actually say 5 altogether because of our editors, who also get the material, so they're not just kind of mechanical editors. You get to the end of that, it's kind of like a lot of stuff is kind of down to the least common denominator in terms of um, voice and way of expressing things, and I felt the need to kind of have like a follow on that was more of a like, okay, so why is this important, at another, at a level above or below or beyond or whatever, the kind of pragmatic aspect that's represented in the manual. So I think the manual and this go together in my mind, because this kind of gets more into like the so what at the level of, how are we going to use, how does this fit into all the important things that we need to do in order to create a more habitable world, not just a more streamlined kind of design workflow or something. Not to diminish the value of design fiction in the mode that, um, in which it's used sort of more, I guess, in commercial contexts. And the whole it's time to imagine harder is kind of like undergirds that, like almost like at a like a kind of manifesto level. So this one I'm psyched about too, because like printing, Ken and his team did a really great job. It's got this kind of like stippled texture to it, really nice cover stock. Again, going bonkers with the gatefold because there's no extra charge for it. And like the image reproduction is really awesome. And this one is like it's very image rich, image and text, which I
You see it as a bridge between the TBD catalog as kind of an exemplar, and the manual, maybe. It sort of looks like that to me. But I don't know, until I see it.
Yeah, I mean they all go together. Like so the catalog is an artifact from the future, right?
Mhm.
We make products
Yeah,
from the future, and one
it's
of
a
them happens
thing.
to be this product catalog that when I sent Jed to a future, he ransacked someone's mailbox and grabbed the catalog. And the manual is more, I'd say more in the kind of instructional,
Mhm.
like how do you, the manual of design fiction. It's a manual for how to design fiction.
And some history as well. Yeah.
Yeah, in history. And this is kind of like, um I guess a little bit more like, what's the purpose? Like,
Mhm.
so what? So what? I read that. I got the catalog. I mean, I'm enthralled. It's kind of fascinating. I had a good chuckle. I shared it with a friend. I was like, "Hey, check this out!" Like all that kind of stuff. Okay, so like then after that, after you've had a good belly laugh and you're kind of like gasping for breath and you've exhausted yourself from enjoying the weird stuff and the androids and the sheep cards, then someone's going to say inevitably in a moment of like kind of, you know, sort of sobering up from all the laughter, be like, well, but why? I don't get it. Like, I mean, I see it's fun and interesting and it's helping me imagine all these weird things, but why? Why would we do this? How does it help us, to create more habitable worlds? These guys keep saying they're creating more habitable worlds, and this kind of gets into it.
Can I get my hands on a copy like today, please? Because I really need an answer for all these job interview questions I keep getting. They're just like, yeah, you can do all these cool things. So what's the point? Where's the commercial stuff? And I'm like, sorry. And then the interview dies. So
Don't say
can I
sorry.
please?
Let them know. Let them know. Let them know. I mean, I think it's more of like a,
Um,
it's more of a, or read, or I don't know if it's an answer, but the thing popped in my head was, the thing I posted it someplace that Patrick Tengay, he had just recently reposted an article he wrote, I don't know, 10 years ago, or an article he referred to. I can't remember if he wrote it or he referred to it. Um, and he talked, it's, you're talking about like the challenge of the generalist, I think, in some regard. I mean, my thing is that companies that don't embrace folks like you, that don't find a place for the generalists, are essentially, they're just nailing their own coffin shut, because they will become irrelevant unless they're able to see beyond their own scope of work and the things that they do.
Mhm.
Um, and that doesn't always sell very well, but I think there's a way to sell that, which
yeah,
isn't putting someone, the person who's interviewing you, who doesn't know any better, and you're convinced they
yeah,
don't know any better, If you antagonize them, they're definitely not going to hire you. If you make them defensive, they're not going to hire you. But if you say, like, there's an opportunity here for you to look beyond what you're able to do right now, and if you want someone who's just going to do the same thing over and over again, I got a book for you to read. It's called Clay Christensen's Innovator's Dilemma, and this basically this is the prediction of your future. You will become as relevant as Data General, or you just
I mean,
like now I've just made them defensive and I've antagonized them again.
so I mean, the thing is, let's do the individual, let's say me, but what I often find out is that it makes sense in certain contexts, and when I really shift my focus. I mean, I've been speaking with Jan Rod, I think, also, and he talks about how the ideal office in Tokyo is trying to look at Southeast Asian markets and how the stuff I see in India. And when I look at the population that this area covers, most of the companies don't care. They honestly know that they can take a very substandard idea, but just scales phenomenally. So they don't care about the new. They have a very different lens on what innovation is. And I've been sort of trying to think about, like, okay, maybe design fiction or this way of thinking is a way to just imagine harder, as you said, but it doesn't have to be harder for the future, but harder just more broadly for different contexts. What I was sort of coming to is this, are we imagining in terms of time ahead? Are most of our imaginations about future, or are our imaginations also about different kinds of contexts and different kinds of people? And which is where I realize my conversation dies. I use the same rhetoric that you use right now, like in the future, you need to be better than your competitors. And I know they're deaf to it. They care about the now, but still using the same tricks for solving scale and mass population. That's my feeling. Yeah, I'm a bit muddled in the head, but that's my sort of my challenge now I face.
And also, it's going to vary depending on the kind. Sorry, who was going to say something?
I was going to say something, but
go on. Go on.
I was just going to say when I was pitching, futures thinking to my clients, I would, there's a quote that says that, the best way to predict the future is to imagine it. And I think in Julian says it really nicely, where it's like, we're living in like Elon Musk's dream. We're living in Jeff Bezos's dream. And the analogy is like the people who think, the people who are imagining the future are the ones that are closer to creating the future, and everyone else is in the passenger seat. Everyone else is in the back seat. So the people who create the future drive the future. And I would do simple things like when I would meet with a client, I often go and find the condo development that's happening nearby, because in Toronto there's condominium developments, and there's always, on the condominium developments, there's always the pre-visualized images, the ghost renders of people. I'm not sure if it's the same situation where you're at, but here the idea is that this condominium developer had a very clear thought of the future of like, we're going to build a building here and we're going to house 400 new people that are going to live in here, and it's going to transform the street. It's going to increase traffic. It's going to create new stores and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, my client who has an agency on that street isn't really aware. They know someone's digging a hole. They know someone's digging a hole at the end of the street. And then when I drive it home saying like, how traffic is nice and quiet today and you can open your doors, you won't be able to do that in 3 years when this is built. And the difference is that they're, in regards to your neighborhood, they're thinking about the future and doing something about it. Before you do something about anything, you have to think about it. So I don't know if this is a convoluted way of expressing the idea of the importance of thinking about the future, but if you don't think about it, you're not in a position to do anything about it.
Can I add before I just watched about the first half an hour of an interview with Seth Godin. This sort of this relates in the fact that I think that these tools can be used for the present as well. Yeah. He was asked about the nature or the state of the economy in the world and how to be positive about it, and he said something to the effect of, we have to ask ourselves, should culture and humanity be at the service of business, or should business be at the service of culture and humanity? And that was, I thought that was a really excellent way of just summarizing a stand of where you want to be.
I think I use a sentence similar. What I tend to say is usually features get built in products depending on what the sales and marketing team have found out. And so it's a vision of the sales team. So should the vision be of the sales team or should the vision be of the people themselves? So instead of even just imagine the future, I tell them, let's just make the future. Designers, we can prototype. We have such incredible tools today. Stop imagining, just make. And that's what designers need to do. They need to build whatever they think the future should be and then take it to the people and make the people say, yeah, that's what I want. And that shift, I feel like, does get conversations going nowadays, again, in my context. But yeah, I mean, yeah, trying. It's fun.
The Titans will say, like Steve Jobs would say, people don't know what they want. and 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 what's his face, Ford would say, you can have it any way, any color you want, as long as it's black. Like the Titans seem to, you're right, make the decisions for us.
Titans. That's such a beautiful retro word. What do we call them now? We're just like billionaires. Yeah.
Yep.
I think so. So it's a really interesting thing. I don't. This isn't telling you what to say in the interview, Sharon, but the um. One thing I'm trying to figure out the way to do in this context, to Jason, just building on what you just said, is like try not to give in too easily to the Titan kind of archetype, or would give in too easy, not to cede too much to that. That is going to create a bit of a us and them, right? And that's it's just an experiment I'm trying to do for myself as much as for conversations I have, to say like, okay, the best way to bring about change, I mean, I never took negotiation, but I imagine one thing is like, don't antagonize the person that you're negotiating with, and don't put them in a position of feeling defensive, because they will not react well to either of those. We know enough about the human psyche to recognize that. And so, how do you say like, look, we want to collaborate in order to bring about like a better future for all of us, and we're going to spend a lot of time kind of really laying out on the table, so to speak, our what makes what how we make sense of the world and what is meaningful to us, and how what kind of logic we use to establish a basis of knowledge. And to it always seemed like kind of mystifying to me, like how anyone could negotiate anything. A family friend is lives in Geneva and is one of those people with the briefcase who shuttles back and forth between the St. Regis and the the Fairfield to negotiate amongst countries that won't talk to each other, or individual parties won't talk to each other. How do you do that? Like, how do you become that? And so I think that if we're going to bring about the kind of worldly change that we want to, that I'm assuming that many people want, and I truly believe like lots of people want that. We just have different ways of understanding what that looks like. And I think the more we try to, the more it becomes, oh, we're under the thumb, and we need to strike out kinetically, even, we need to like throw rocks and stuff. I don't think that brings about the kind of change that we want. And I think we're also playing into another kind of shared ideology about how change comes about, which is like the monkey brain taking over and throwing rocks, or worse, right? Throwing armaments at each other. And so I'm just curious if it's like, where's the middle, where imagination and structure, like the creative folks who have ideas and imagination about the future can collaborate with the entities that have what we look at as like the muscle, or the might, or the capital, or the infrastructure, or the logistics chains, or the factories, to actually make the stuff that we're going to need in this world. um, because the alternative seems to me, like when we tell these stories, the alternative is like everything's a smoldering wreck, and now we're trying to piece things back together, and I'm not sure it needs to be that way.
I saw an essay that was shared in the Discord, NFL Discord. I'll try and pull it up again. It was linked to something that said everything looks the same now. And this researcher, again, there were some holes in the study, and I showed a few researchers, and they said one maybe it's a little too superficial, but he had lots of images of different cityscapes and different clothing and different whatevers. And I think that became very important for me. I'm like, yeah, if everything looks the same, what can we do to me a bit different? And that sort of became a nice rhetoric I could use. Again, the interview is just an excuse. I enjoy interviews because you learn so much about other people and how to talk to them. But this idea of using design fiction methods for the today in companies, I think that's what even you're trying to crack. And the age of average. Thank you. That's the one. It was fun. It was fun to read. So that sort of becomes my starting point for an argument to say, you know what, even just for today, how can we imagine a bit differently? So yeah.
Go on, Fred. 'Cause we had this conversation
No,
yesterday.
I was gonna hold my tongue.
No, why? Wait.
I don't know. I feel like I feel like historically change has been made through action, like through like throwing stones.
What do you mean? It's like no one threw phones when the internet was invented.
But like big change always happens with like through revolution, not through like reforming.
Not always. I mean, there's because you're looking at the things where there was historically they sort of say like, oh, this is when that fight happened, but change is always happening. And
yeah, change is always happening for sure. But I think like traditionally, like historically, when
what do you mean traditionally? Whose tradition?
Like historically, big changes have come through like revolutionary action, not through like.
I'm gonna push you on this because I think you're focusing on that particular idiom of violent change as opposed to
not just violent change, but like I suppose like I mean I feel like I'm changing my position now.
So who like got out their 5.56 millimeter ammunition when abstract art was introduced?
But what I'm talking about, why abstract art? I don't understand what your point is. Like
I'm saying that was like a major cultural revolution, right? People sort of
Oh, okay. Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah. I get you. No, I was more about like power, like how changing like how power and hierarchy works. Traditionally, it's been done through like revolution. As culturally, yeah, for sure, stuff has changed like without that, and that's yeah. I hear you on that.
And usually the power thing is just a couple of titans duking it out, who've convinced convinced an entire society that to live in their dream, and that they need to actually get out your 5.56 millimeter ammunition and meet me in the Capitol.
I suppose like a kind of argument would be that like I don't know many examples where like stuff has been changed from the inside. It seems like everyone talks about like work with industry and help them change from the inside. But like if everyone's been doing that for years and nothing's changing, then it feels like it's almost like a bad plan. But also like I'm just there are different ways of doing stuff.
Are we just the frogs in the increasingly heating water? We don't notice the change because we're in the change. But if you stopped for a second and you went like, let's go back 10 years to now, things have changed incredibly. And I do see the idea of like, yeah, there's the titans, there's the large titan powers that resort to violence. Then there are the small titan powers that fight amongst each other. Like think of television networks fighting amongst each other on who's going to do what. Meanwhile, there's a power shift that's happening culturally where like YouTube becomes a new entertainment medium, that YouTubers become an entertainment medium that disrupts the old power structure of those titans, but they become a power structure in and of themselves. And Google becomes something like that, which means something else is gonna happen. But yeah, I think there's a spectrum of power. There's a spectrum of like love to violence that happens, and art can be something that can shift things fundamentally. But I think when you're in the change, it's hard to see the change.
Just for the record, the frog in the boiling pot of water has been disproven.
If they
Aw,
they do jump out, they're like, "Fuck you with this
They do
experiment.
jump
I'm
out.
out."
So
You know what?
Human,
I'm gonna
human-
I'm gonna disprove that by I'm gonna find a frog, throw it in the pot, and live
Oh,
stream it.
poor frog, poor frog.
live stream.
I think the better one is the locker room one. You hang out in the locker room long enough, you kind of like, doesn't smell bad in here. It smells. I don't smell.
But I would
bad."
argue that people are feeling the change. That's why like depression is on the rise, mental health problems are on the rise. Like there is like the frog is feeling the heat of the pot in society at the moment.
I have a sort of analogy that I wrote several years ago about snowflakes. I think it came from the word of snowflake because everyone was just switching their political space. But if you've ever seen an avalanche happen, it looks glorious and it looks like it's a revolution happening right away, right? And everything just coming down. But the avalanche only happens because for several years, snowflakes have kept on building on it. So I have this balance where I feel like even for the revolution to happen, there needs to be a lot of these small movements for a long time that sensitizes people enough to support one of the titans when they stand up against another one. But because otherwise it's just like two titans and then there's no support behind one, it doesn't happen. So we are building up support through whatever little actions we can. So maybe there's a bit of both worlds going on there.
That's like a black swan event or a emergent change that comes from a bunch of accumulation that, although I'd say an avalanche is probably more expected. But maybe the first avalanche wasn't.
I like it
Sure.
myself.
Oh, sorry.
By the way, my frogs go in a pressure cooker, with the bolts. And I use 7.62 ammo, not 5.56.
Yeah, I suggested Instapot.
So they can't leave if they wanted to. That makes sense.
Isn't that true? That's what we just said. We're stuck in Bezos' world right now. We're stuck in Gates' world. My God, they've broken Windows 11. They can't fix it, and then they went and broke 10. So and we're stuck with that. Of course, I'm using Apple now.
I think Bing Chat is going to fix that.
With,
Copilot everything.
With the AI.
I haven't read this this article of the age of average, but I think Bing Chat, based on the title of that article, I feel like Bing Chat might help contribute to the averageness of things in general.
I'm trying to write an article right now called "The Median is the Message." In that, with AI, you're basically taking the middle path of just about everything that's ever been written, and it's pretty vanilla. Unless you play with it, you really have to push it though if you want to get anything edgy or interesting out of it.
There's a great article, I think it's called like The American Smile, about Midjourney and how it creates like the same kind of smile in every culture through image generation.
That sounds like a horror movie.
Yeah, but images it creates are quite horrifying.
That's great.
I saw a video the other day. I'm trying to figure out how to make a deep fake, but do it using only open like tools that a lame person with buttons can press. And there was a Russian guy who made a video, and then he said, "Yeah, this is amazing. It does exactly what I want." But the voice after he spoke, it created an American voice, and he's like, "Yeah, but that's fine because that's what all of them are going to be." And it's like this normalization that we imagine ourselves sounding American because all the tools end up reappropriating us in that manner in the virtual world. So yeah, it was a bit scary, but also, I guess that's the word. I don't know. We're all American at the end of the day, I guess.
Yeah.
I think we're all Canadian.
I was just a question out there. Are people using like Bing or Chat GPT in their work?
Yeah.
Like every day?
Yeah,
Pretty much.
It's my Copilot. It just sits in the corner and I use it all the time.
Do you ever feel the urge not to?
No, I don't. I mean, I do not use it for a lot of things, but it's just so damn convenient and so easy to get unstuck. I spend less time doing. I see. You know what it is? I spend less time scratching the surface. I let it scratch the surface, and then I just pick the worms.
I've found that with my writing, I use it for bouncing ideas off of, getting counter arguments, helping organize my thoughts. But then when I ask it to write something, it's so terrible that it actually encourages me to write something completely different. and then I'm still doing something. So it's inspiring and an incentive in the sense of like, I don't know, trying to talk to somebody that really doesn't quite get it or isn't just doesn't have the skill, and you're like, I'll do it, fine, I'll do it myself.
The here an example that I have is you know, I keep Chat GPT open, and I also have a local installation of GPT for all. So I'm using the Vicuna 13 billion parameter model. And what I do is there are certain questions that are more appropriate to ask Chat GPT than there are to ask Google. So an example would be, you know, I'm a Windows user, or the computer that I work on mainly is a Windows machine, but I don't have all the alt codes memorized, and I don't even remember the alt code for the accent on my name. So what I'll do is I'll just say, hey, Chat GPT, what's the alt code for trademark? What's the alt code for registered symbol? What's the alt code for the acute accent on an E? And it just tells me the alt code. Done. Whereas if you ask alt code for acute accent on an E in Google, you're going to get 5 sponsored ads followed by YouTube videos that you need to fast forward 20 minutes, because first you have to hear the guy's life story before, you know, of how alt codes change his life before he tells you what the answer is. And then you have those Google questions that never really answer. It's always a technique to get you to look for something else. So that's an example right there of how GPT for me is a more direct way of doing stuff. Or another simple one was I needed a reference. I was like, can you think of any novels where they say something along these lines? I was trying to say, I'm trying to think of the specific question that I was asking. Oh, when everything is awesome, nothing is awesome. That was the thing I wanted to say. And I knew that was paraphrased from something somebody said. And I said, can you think of that, where that may have come from? And they said, oh, when everything is good, nothing is good was something that Colin Powell had said in a speech on this day. It was so direct. And I was able to go and find that speech and
it was true. It was a true bit of information.
Yeah, I was able to attribute the information. Yeah.
I thought he was going to say Lego movie. So totally wasn't the Lego movie.
Oh, I don't know.
The first one. Anyway, I think
No, it's like The Incredibles. It's
Yeah.
when everyone is super, no one will be.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's been appropriated.
But being able to do stuff, I did a proposal the other day, big, long proposal for a company, and I copy pasted the entire thing. And I said, can you please review the proposal? Let me know what you think and offer any suggestions of what I might be missing.
Mhm.
And then it just made a list of all these things that it felt was missing in the proposal. And a few of them were clutch. And I was like, this is great. And I was able to factor that into the proposal because it's seen so many, it kind of knows what makes a good proposal. So yeah, using it like that is really, really handy.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I asked because I felt like in my own like work, I've been like having this fear. And I noticed when I moved to live in Berlin now. When I moved here, I use Google Maps for everything. And I felt that like after a while, like I wasn't learning where I lived because I was relying so much on Google Maps that I was completely like disconnected from where I was living in a way. And I feel like I'm worried about using GPT. Often I want to use it and I'm like, I should not do it for just now because I'm worried about like losing skills I have or like sort of giving that bit over to like GPT. But I think the example you gave there about like the stuff you've been using for sounds like yeah, stuff you don't need to like know that in your head instantly. Like what you would Google, instead you're now doing it through.
I feel like it's doing the opposite. It's making me learn more. It's making me understand more. It's giving me more things to research. So for a lot of what I'm doing, I think that's it's a lot more beneficial. I feel like I'm being more productive and I am engaging core muscles more frequently because I'm not having to, let's say, stretch and warm up because it can do the stretches and the warm ups for me.
But I think that's because of the way you're using it, and you and I have talked about this too. It's like you're going to have people that just use it as a crutch and aren't using it as a tool, right? That they're literally just saying, write me the proposal, and they don't even look at it, and then they copy and paste it and send it off, right? As opposed to breaking it down and what are the components and how can I improve, and asking a whole slew of questions that are layered on top of each other that actually get to some insight.
You guys are helping me too, because I'm on the edge. I'm doing a dissertation right now, so I got an academic, conflict. So I want to be able to say this thing's completely AI free, but I love the way, especially Dre talked about it, but that assistant, just that assistant that just, because you want to stay in the flow of the work. And I know everybody's doing a lot of creative work here. And whenever I have to pop out and get a reference or something, or I forgot the date that was, having that just in the corner to just boom, give it to me, that would be
There's an
useful.
incredible tool that I read on Medium where someone said if you're writing and you're in the flow, just use TK, which is to come. It's like a standard editing kind of placeholder while you're writing, and then you can copy and paste that into ChatGPT and say fill in the TKs, or fill in the areas in square brackets where you might say on this date, and then you just put square brackets and say to come, whatever, and it'll figure that stuff out.
Oh geez, you shouldn't have told me that, because I do the square brackets now in pink, so that I have to go back and find those.
Also, one quick thing is if you're using any spell check, Grammarly, anything, you're already using AI. Like that's so to say AI free, it's kind of like saying I'm only gonna eat things that are organic. It's like too late. There's shit in the soil,
Thanks.
So totally. I think it's more like it's the creep, how quickly it can come into like my life. I feel like it's that like bouncing ideas with someone. I think I'd still want to do that with a person rather than I know that I could do it really well, but I feel like the more I around that, actually the more I'm going to become more agoraphobic, stay inside more and not try and reach out. And I think there's like almost these arguments that like it's like it's fast food. It's great, but like sometimes it's trying to like not eat it. That's what I'm finding. But I was doing a project on something. That's why I asked the question. I wanted to get some just different perspectives.
I used ChatGPT a little bit last week for a couple of things. One was to again ask how to make deepfake using off-the-shelf things. It gave an answer which was, well, it was helpful, helped me at least get started. So I think what Dre also does is when you don't know something and you know the knowledge sits outside, use it, ask it questions. It'll give it in a semi-sensible way. May or may not be useful, but gets you started, doesn't keep you stuck. But the second is when you want to make something creative, make on your own. So writing a wedding toast and writing a job advert. When I asked it to write those for me, it made pretty decent ones, and it told me exactly what I don't want to do, because that's what everyone is doing. So it sort of helped push me. If I want to just get a standard one out, I'd use what it gave me. It was pretty damn good, and it was long, so I said make it in 100 words, and it was still brilliant. But then it also tells me what I can do beyond it, and the challenge for maybe one of the courses I'll run later this year is make something ChatGPT can't make, and that'd be great because it sort of makes you stand out from the crowd. So knowing what the crowd looks like, ChatGPT collects the crowd amazingly, really well.
I love that. I love your view of that. That really helps too.
I like taking. I don't like doing one-shot prompts where you just like, here's a thing and just take what it gives you. And it's about recursively getting it to enhance what's going on. So like Shaban said, write the thing. Okay, it's too long now. Make it 100 words. What I like doing is I'll just write something like I would normally write anything. I'll copy paste the entire thing, and I have a prompt that I keep saved on the side that I can just paste in that says something to the effect of, I want you to very lightly improve this. Check for grammar and spelling, consistency, legibility, and feel free to reorganize my thoughts for legibility or comprehension. And I paste that in there, and it keeps all my words. It fixes little things because I have a terrible because of the time machine. I'm always mixing my tenses, and then it just reorganizes things in ways that's like, oh, it makes sense that I would lead with this before I said this, as opposed to my weird brain putting it in the wrong place. And it does a really, really good job at very lightly editing without having to do that. Because if you just use the term like rewrite this to make it better, it's just going to write something that sounds like it came from like a romance novel or a self-help book, like whatever the median is out there, right? Lots of flowery languages. I also have to tell it to like stop using adjectives and adverbs.
I have to tell it to stop doing American spelling every time.
Yeah, ditto.
It wrote, I apologize for something where I said something, please don't do this. And I said, I apologize. I said, apologize has an S in where I come from. And it says, oh, I understand now that apologize is spelled with an S and I will never do it again. But the apologize still had the Z inside it. And it was just like, British jobs are not in danger from ChatGPT. That's for sure. The American ones, sorry guys, but yeah.
Hey, I have another thing I'd like to chat about, and that is Julian. You posted something in the Design Fiction channel, something about making a top 10 list. Like what's the 10 list of design fiction? And
what did I mean when I said that? What was I saying?
It
was like 10 things. It was like 10 principles.
Yeah, it was like 10 things, 10 principles. And I was picking up what you were putting down. I was like, oh yeah, what's Tom Sachs' 10 bullets of design fiction, right? What's Lars von Trier's Dogma 95 of design fiction, right?
And there was also Tony and Fiona did like the speculative design. I think it was like an A-B list.
Oh, okay.
Not this, but this. It was a little bit more. It wasn't in the. It was in that same mode. And then I watched Air, which was delightfully entertaining. The Matt Damon.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I gotta watch that.
And he's got the Phil Knight, played by what's his face, Ben Affleck.
Mm-hmm.
He has their list, and they use it through the film as like a kind of interstitial, like one. Always, I don't know, first rule of Fight Club kind of stuff.
That's great. Yeah, so I've just popped into the Design Fiction channel, and so you offered 3 up. You're like artifacts, not words, and implications, not predictions. Normal, ordinary, everyday, not extraordinary. And I really liked how that started. And then there was the talk of top 10, the rules for improv and the 10 list for something else. So I took a crack at it and I pasted a list that uses the ones that you did and some other ones, and I just had to think one night and just banged off a top 10 list. I wanted to get people to I don't know, mess around and see what we can do, because I look at this as like, yeah, this is great. This is a top 10 list of design fiction, principles of design fiction, what's missing, what needs to be augmented.
I'd love to have that list. And then
yeah, it's in the design. I pasted it just. I replied to your thing with that. So if you just go to the Design Fiction and just scroll up.
Yeah, that part I got. I'm saying,
I
would love for us to get to a point where it's like, okay, this list feels good. You and I, you come on the show and we just do like a little mini-sode, number 1.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Like didn't Letterman used to do that? I'm totally dating myself. People,
what did Letterman do?
He had like a top 10. They would count down from 10.
Oh yeah.
I forget like the little what the bit was about, but I remember he had like, oh, here we got the top 10 list. People were like, yeah, tonight we're doing the top 10 list. And they were always the writer's room earning their pay for the day.
What would ChatGPT return? I wonder for that. If you ask ChatGPT what is the top 10 for this, I mean, it might show you the nascency of the craft.
Yeah,
I'd be curious though. It'd be amazing if it like
I mean, the list that I provided, there's a lot of ChatGPT in there. I did ask it to generate a few lists. I did also get GPT for all to generate some lists. GPT for all doesn't understand what design fiction is, whereas ChatGPT kind of gets what design fiction is.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I prompted it with, I said, listen, I prompted it with Tom Sachs.
Did you tell it to listen? Did you say like, listen, hold on here?
I do speak to it colloquially. That
I
like,
do
I'll
as,
be
I
like,
do as well.
listen,
Yeah.
I'm polite with it. I'm listen. I speak in the we. It's like, hey, we're gonna do this thing. I get it involved. I make it invested in my ideas.
Yeah, totally. Like it's
But
like you're playing with a dog. It's
yeah,
great.
a very literate dog. So I asked it to, I gave it the Tom Sachs 10 bullets. I gave it Lars von Trier's Dogma 95. I gave it a few other 10 lists that I think are cool. And I said, let's make a list that's kind of like this. And it generated some stuff that I thought made sense. And then a lot of it was me filling in like, I'm a big believer in like design it, otherwise it's just fiction. Like I think the design part of design fiction is crucial. But yeah, so there's a bit of there's a mishmash. There's about like a quarter Chat GPT in here, and the rest is me forcing it to do my bidding.
Cool.
I love it. Work on that.
Yeah, the GPT for all. Let's see, what did it do? Yeah, it really skews heavy on fiction. It's all about world building, is what it was. So it obviously doesn't understand what design fiction actually is.
And who does? I mean,
Oh, who does? Oh, I mean, ChatGPT has a better sense. And this is something that I don't know, because when I first started asking it questions about design fiction, because I built a design fiction generator, where I would say, here's the rules of the game. This is how it kind of works. But what I want you to do is bring back ideas around, you need to think of like some kind of a technology or societal change. And I want you to bring back an artifact based on an archetype. And it didn't know what to do. And then I trained it a little bit more, and I made a big list of archetypes. So I fine-tuned it so it understood what the archetype was. And I said, I want you to just hint to it. Don't expose the technology too overtly. And then it started getting better. And now if I reference just design fiction, it kind of knows what to do. It still needs to learn a little bit more. So this makes me think that like it's learning what design fiction is based on like what I'm doing it. So is that my view of the GPT model that understands this, or is this collective? Like if you start asking questions about design fiction, has my training of it influenced your representation of what it gives? So yeah, I encourage you to
try.
try it out and let me know how it what it sounds like.
This is very cool. I mean, like how you guys have cards now that you all sell and these kits. Maybe in the end you'd start selling your trained model of GPT-3 to people to use for their design fiction experiments, because that'll help them and in the flavor of Dre or in the flavor of Julian.
Yeah.
That sounds more like where it's going. If if it doesn't work.
I love that. One of the things that I'm experimenting with the shop is something that I learned from Kemp through, or from indirectly from Mark Jacobs through Kemp, which was to sell things that don't exist, or that are design fictions. And by that I mean putting things on the shop that aren't, or you can't transact with them, but they're represented as a product. And it just says sold out or coming soon. And there was one thing that Mark Jacobs, I think it was like Dream, something, I can't remember the name of the world. And I just saw the page on the Mark Jacobs website, Mark Jacobs, fashion designer. And the clothing was just kind of like enthralling. I mean, it's definitely not for me. Heavy zippers and lots of yeah, just weird. But the fact that interspersed amongst these, they were creating a world. I mean, full on, very very well executed and also beautifully rudimentary world building, which is like these clothing worn by people in a particular setting, right? It was a very polished concrete floor kind of vibe, and latex, and then there would be a book, and the book would be like, five. It wasn't exactly this. They didn't go this far. There were actual books, but I would have done books that's kind of like, at home witchcraft or something like that. 33 kinky uses for latex by so and so. To actually, create the and get the fucking thing printed or just really expertly rendered so that you're kind of like, ooh, that's. Let me just look this up on A-Books. Someone's got to have this used. Um, so that's one of the things I'm trying. I mean, I've got a ridiculous number of used books that I've been collecting over the last couple months. In the realm, I feel like the direction I'm going is like I'm getting these kind of weird like 60s and 70s, like futures books, very serious, very serious, like kind of archetype and sort of management consulting. And then I started diverting. It's kind of like, man, people have been doing future stuff for, I mean, obviously, but it's like, let's mess around with this. And we were in the desert a couple weekends ago, and I went to this one used bookstore which just said sci-fi on it. I was like, I got to go in there, and the place was mental. And they had this one section that was all essentially about it was in the kind of tarot kind of realm of things, like star reading kind of books, and they're all like kind of beat up and weird. And one of them was like, it was so analytic. It was like literally like a technical manual with kind of like these made up expressions of the relationships between various stars and formulas and stuff. And I was like, oh man, this is someone not just kind of joking around or screwing around with stuff, but this, like, they're running the numbers. Like, they had their slide rule and stuff out, and it was all about creating these kind of futures. And so part of me is kind of like, if for a community that is invested in futures, why would we not also kind of represent this, even just for historical purposes? Like, I know you guys are taking the futures thing very seriously, and yes, your corporate futures and economic projections, stuff like that, but did you also know, I mean, I guess that's what, like, Superflux, probably the motivation behind the tarot thing, I guess, is they don't say it directly, but I think we could say it more directly, to be like, there are a bunch of different ways in which people sort of look in the future. We know that, and let's just evaluate them, not as if we're going to bring them into and say we now do celestial readings in order to do future stuff, but just even to expand the put everything on an even field. Like, these are all the ways in which over the last like 50 years that futures have been considered. What's that? You have to turn off your thing. We don't care if your laundry's out. Colonies in space. That's not Fred Sharman's thing, is it? No. You're on mute, Steve.
I'm on Gong Show here right now. This is from T.A. Heppenheimer, and it's got a foreword by Ray Bradbury, and it says, a comprehensive and factual account of the prospects for human colonization of space. And the background effects, there we go, none. So and then the inside, it's 1977, so it's been around for a little while. I got this in my favorite bookshop in Penticton in British Columbia. It's like a used bookshop down there. But it's got like really great graphics and stuff. But
it's interesting. It's not this one, is it?
It's to John F. Kennedy. It's also been given a time. But it's like to me, I've carried this around for years because I just love it. But it's got like, moon base rendering stuff from that time of era, but it's deadly serious about like, what's it going to take? It's got some graphics about trajectories, and
I'm wondering if it's not like an edition of this, is it?
Yeah, it's like, flip back over to,
because it's like, this is from the same era. This is also deadly serious. There are formulas and stuff in it and renderings.
Space.
Or it doesn't have to be the same thing, but it's like, it seems like it's from the
similar
same
idea.
era. Yeah.
Who's the author in that one, or the editor?
The author is NASA, National Aeronautics and
Oh,
Space.
NASA put that out, yeah.
With the super old. I don't even know what that logo is.
Yeah, weird.
But it's got this stuff. Like, here's the kind of.
Yeah, love it. This is the kind of thing I've had on my shelf like for years. This also came from that same bookshop, but like the deadly serious book about mining the sky, about mining asteroids. right? Comments. It's got numbers, and then this one's about, this is the one as was and everybody has, and Virgin Galactic Guide space flight manual. So this is another example where it's like it's also, you know, somewhat serious, but it's literally got takeoff. It's got, you know, separation vehicles. It's
This
really,
is good NASA punk stuff, Dre.
so maybe I can, I don't know, maybe I should put some, I'm not sure I'll post that, but they talk about current stuff, but then they go to the future, right? Like the cost, $10,000 per seat and a super hypersonic plane and stuff.
Yeah,
So
no, that's a first class seat from London
Mhm.
to New York.
yeah, I was gonna say this is out of date.
I've forgotten what the YouTube channel is. There's a guy on YouTube does this thing called speculative biology, where he talks about like biological worlds as if they're like real, but like they're fictional worlds. And he'll talk about the biology about them in super like loads of detail, explaining why the creatures are like that. I've forgotten what the channel's called, but it's great.
Yeah, this one's 1990s. This one here. So I got another one on
what was that?
rocket film.
What was that first one? I'm just curious. I'm gonna try to look it up.
It's like design
in space.
colonies in space.
Colonies in Space, Oppenheimer. You can see it. And then Ray Bradbury writes, oh, Asimov writes something on the back as well. There's a couple of little back things. And what they both, so this was super serious. Colonies in Space, yes, of course, why not? Let's move, let's go there, let's do the job. That's Bradbury. How warm and delightful to read about an expanding future for humanity. Mr. Heppenheimer takes us to the infinite world. Coming space age, everything we need to know about it as of this moment, Isaac Asimov. So I got a crap ton of old Asimov books I've been digging through as well. But anyway, that's I pulled it out a while back to show you guys, but it was a perfect moment. Just when you're talking about your old books there. But so I think I was hooked on what we think of as design fiction a while back. Just didn't know what to call it, or had to find you guys in the future apparently. Oh, see, he left the call. I lost. I was going to mention that podcast Stray with you and Julian about your using your prompts. And you had the same comment about ChatGPT about like they weren't able to give you exactly the right, you know, responses that you're looking for, but they gave you some ideas towards them. But just that prompt set, like just that's pretty valuable. There should be a way to get a hold of that for the put
Yeah,
it
there's
up on the store.
Yeah, there's a few things I can share. Like I was using, I'm using Poe.com, which is a way to engage language models, put a prompt behind the curtain. So you can't see the prompt, but your interface is like so one of them is give me fiction. You just type in give me fiction and it generates some design fiction. And I look at it a lot like, you know, when I used to creative direct a team of junior creatives, I would often say like, go come up with 50 headlines, and they would generate 50 headlines and I would look at them and there'd probably be a few that I liked that I would ask them to keep going on. Like, this is what I like about them. Can you do this? Giving them some direction. They would do 50 more. And this process would happen over the course of days, sometimes weeks. And with ChatGPT, it happens in minutes.
Yeah.
You know, give me 50 headlines. It does it. I like this one, this one, this one. Can you do more like that? And then it does 50 more. And then oftentimes it'll write something that is 90% where I need it to be. And I'll just take that and I'll just write it the way that I want it to be written. So ultimately but it comes down to, you know, taste and judgment. It's the human at the end of the human in the loop at the end of the loop.
Yeah, that reassures me for sure. But I like it because you get rid of all the stuff you don't want. Like we were used to say it's easier to edit than create. And then it's also in this case, and so you've had a great, like I said, it was just, you get rid of all the stuff you don't want. It's like, I don't want that. So.
Yeah. And you think of a creative director, when you're a creative director working with a team, you're not the one coming up with the idea. You're the one giving the direction. They're coming up with the ideas. And then you're picking the best ones. You're using your taste and judgment as an experienced creative director to bring them to light. And then you end up improving them. and I feel it's very much the same way. And you could say the same thing about, like, you know, how Andy Warhol operated.
Yeah.
Go make some art. I'll pick my favorite ones and tell you how to make it better, and we're gonna make that real.
Neat. You guys are the new Warhols, but for design fiction now.
Maybe, yeah, exactly.
Maybe. I don't know. But that's fantastic, though. Thank you.
Hey Dre, is there a facility for making there must be a template for DaVinci? So if I if I have the same template that I use for just doing some finishing work on the office hours videos,
Mm-hmm.
that I could just pull it up each time, or is there
I've never created a template with DaVinci, but yeah, there's totally a way of doing it. There's whether that's the pro, did you get the studio version or are you using the free version?
I'm using the studio version.
Okay, good. So yeah, for sure there's a way of doing it. I know that, like, I've downloaded templates from Envato Elements.
Yeah.
They never do exactly what I want them to do. It's all done in Fusion, and Fusion is its own beast. It's its own level of understanding. But I'm pretty sure that when you create something in Fusion, you create a Fusion thing, and then that can be turned into a template. I'm actually interested in doing this because I want to do it for specifically this janky time machine rendering that I did for the live stream, because I want to put up some animated graphics. So I'll probably dig into that and let you know what I find out.
Yeah. Okay.
There's another cool thing with DaVinci that I haven't experimented with, but it's the collaborative editing, where two people or multiple people can connect on a project, and I can just open it up and see the timeline and do the editing. And the next time you open it up, you've seen what I've done, and so on and so forth. I think there's something really cool there that I've never done before.
Check.
I was tangent thought. If that, I was thinking of the Machine Stops book again, Dre. Sorry, it's just perfect for me.
Yeah, it's such a good book
right now, especially with this dissertation. And I was trying to think of the design fiction for that. But of course, it would be the manual. I think maybe you have a different thought, but I was thinking of the manual. She's like carries with her in the airship to go see her son.
Yeah,
and I think, and the guy dropped the manual, but everybody tried. I don't know. That was a weird moment, but that manual seemed to be like really important. But it seemed like something perfect for a design fiction, because you'd have like the cover. Maybe it's just a box that looks like a book, but with the cover, and then maybe there's a couple pages. I don't know. Just that could be a good exercise either for your channel, but I think it might be something I could do for an exemplar, maybe too, of my own for the dissertation.
Well, I think of like the different uses for design fiction, and one would be, let's say if the Machine Stops was a modern book that was being promoted, that's a great idea of using design fiction as the promotional tool. You release the design fiction first. It hints at the world. It gives you clues as to what you might expect in the story. You end up discovering all that stuff when you read the book, when it comes out a month or two from now. But the design fiction is the teaser element, and I think that applies to books and TV shows and movies and advertising campaigns. You name it. There's so many ways that you can engage. I guess the super fans.
Yeah, and that's where the dissertation is kind of going now, where I'm and I like that approach. And then there's the other flip side of it too, where I am focused on short stories, novella kind of standalone pieces, but at the same time pulling the design fiction out. So that's why I guess what I was practicing with the Machine Stop was like, what would I pull out of that to get people to go read it? You know what I mean? Like, what would I take out to get people to go read it? I'm not sure that the manual will be the right one, but anyway, just maybe depending on how it was executed, to say on the design side. But
yeah, I would do things when I was in advertising. I would hire science fiction writers to write short stories. I'd give them a brief. This is what I want you to do, and they would write. And I usually give them 1,500 to 3,000 words, and I'd ask them to write short stories. And those short stories, I would try to find something in there that I could make a design fiction out of. but sometimes it didn't exist in the story itself, but the story inspired a design fiction. So I created a design fiction that's related to the story only through that world inspired the design fiction. So I don't think design fiction has to represent something specific in a story. When you're doing it with a story, you can just make up a design fiction that's inspired by the world that you're thinking about, right?
Thanks. Yeah. So as long as there's it has to be a reasonable connection, authentic connection, but it doesn't have to be an actual thing from the novel.
Yeah. So like I worked on Molson Canadian for a long time, right? So I'd gotten a bunch of stuff written for Molson Canadian, some short stories. So I had a handful of authors write some stories, and some of the research I was doing on the side, I was looking into this concept called synthol. It's a synthetic alcohol that someone's developing. It's a real thing. It's a synthetic alcohol that you drink. It makes you feel drunk, and you can turn it off by taking a pill, which is just a neuro receptor inhibitor. And it just shuts it off. You can be sober in 5 minutes, and but it doesn't have the effect on the liver that alcohol does. And I thought, this is really, really great. And so the design fiction I created, which was somewhat related to the stories, but more related to this like signal, this emerging technology, was that Molson Canadian creates synthol based beer. And there was a dial on the bottom that you can crank and turn into, how drunk do you want to be? You just turn the dial and you set your level and you drink it. And when you're done, you're sober. So it was like, okay, well, what does the packaging? That beer has to live in a box, and the box needs to communicate this idea. And that's the design fiction. And that was the thing that the clients really thought about, because a lot of it was like cannabis infused beer and zero alcohol beer and low calorie beer. These are all things that are in their mindset. And it's like, well, this fits in that world. It's just not ready for prime time yet. Get them thinking about it today.
Yeah. Start to think. I mean, like, and that's another Star Trek thing, messing with all think about it. Right. So, but that I love it. And I was just thinking about heart rate, like in terms of, victims, like women trying to walk home and they're inebriated or whatever. If their heart rate rises to a certain level, it kicks out, like the effect wears off quickly as well. So just as purge from the system, stuff like that. But it starts to get the mind, like the mind starts to going, right? Like you're just even talking about it. Love it. But yeah, so that helps. That's a great thought. Thank you. That actually helped me out. Thinking about that, how to do that, the order, and then what it could be. I have to do an installation as well. That's the other thing I have to do. Along with the defense, there's got like I have to do like it's not an art installation necessarily, but it's an installation of some items, print out physical things. So the cards give me some ideas for that, and I could make it interactive somehow. Question for you though. Okay, so on that track, then if I have a story, the short story, and I'm trying to figure out a short, so how would I use the cards then to maybe pull it out? Use the cards with that, so that story exists already. There's probably a way to do that.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's probably a bunch of ways to do that. One way would be just treat a random paragraph in the book as a prompt. Just open the book, point your finger to that paragraph, and call it a card.
Okay. And that would be like the opening card, like the
it could be any card. It depends. It depends. Yeah. It's how you think about it. I always think about the archetype is the most important card in my mind, because it's what needs to be visualized. But the object is the archetype is nothing without the object. So it's like, what's the thing?
Yeah.
What's the artifact? What's the object that you're talking about? And so I tend to like to start there. Imagine the science fiction, and then apply the design fiction to the science fiction. That's one way of doing it.
Good, thanks.
But sometimes I'm just inspired. It's like, I want to make a birthday card. I'm dead set on making a birthday card, because it's like, I haven't done that trope yet. What's that going to be? And then I force myself to imagine what a birthday card of the future might be, and what implications it might suggest.
Yeah. And then the cards just kind of start to help you fill that in. Yeah. Good. Yeah, that helps. That's good. I haven't really engaged in that far yet. I'm still trying to write like the a lot of the backup stuff to that dissertation still, like the trying to get to the meat of it. But then this installation, yeah, I'm trying to figure out, that's what I was mentioning, I think, but
Mhm.
that helps actually. There's something I could probably do with that. Cool. Sorry, if somebody wants to talk, I can stop talking.
That's all good.
Anybody got any leads on fun paid work in the summer months coming up? Random projects for transit-minded generalists.
Mm. No, I haven't seen.
Where's
I
that
haven't
thread?
seen anything. I did. I do. I've been thinking a lot about the that park map, trail map that you sent me, the Toronto trail map.
Oh
which,
yeah.
when I dug into it, it was like this was done in 2017, and so I was really paying a focus on accessibility, knowing that. And I thought it was interesting that they don't mention the word accessibility or wheelchair isn't mentioned once in that entire document, which I think is interesting that they wouldn't consider that. But yeah, there's a lot that's been going on, and I recently got an e-bike. So I'm just kind of boogieing around all kinds of different places, but I am more mindful of like the bike map system that's here in Toronto, and Google does a pretty good job at showing you the bike maps, but they don't really do a great job at really helping you figure out your routes in a logical bike map type of way. So to me, I think there's a big need for like better mid-speed vehicle mapping infrastructure online. Like that's just a thing that doesn't really exist because Google Maps bike feature isn't, or it's, I guess it's mid-speed option isn't comprehensive.
Yeah, well, and there's this whole thing about like if your average speed over some distance might actually ultimately make you faster. Like you might be able to go 50 miles an hour for, 10 minutes of your hour-long commute, but if you just went 15 miles an hour, the whole time, you might get there faster.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I used to bike 10 kilometers to work every day, and if I drove, it took me 35 minutes. If I took TTC or the transit, it would take me 45 to 50 minutes. And if I biked, it took me just under 30 minutes. It was like biking was the fastest way to do it, and it was literally the slowest way I was getting there.
Right. Yeah. So what, I don't know. I guess with all of the mid-speed stuff, like I'm kind of just like looking for the right project that's going to get one of the gang excited to play with me. I think that's my biggest challenge is like, just, I mean, obviously I'm looking for grant money to be like, all right, cool. Somebody gave me a structure. Good. I'm gonna make this thing. But I'm kind of up to making whatever, as long as somebody wants to get in the sandbox with me. Yeah, but, what would a mobility tool, like a navigational tool, look like if it wasn't just about, oh, there's a formal bike path over here, that, well, the pavement's really good in this zone,
Mhm.
and like what would it be sourcing information from, right? Would it be like is it using the Wi-Fi on people's phones or the Bluetooth on people's phones, to be like, oh, this person managed to not slow down at all? Does it start to find these like paths of least resistance? And that's something that we definitely could just do like a full design fiction from, because there's no way we're going to make that in the short term.
I was just noticing there's some prompts where you can get ChatGPT to create an app. Like I was just looking at the Calgary Pathways app here and see if it's any good or not. But I know during our classwork we had to, this came up during some little exercise we're doing, but it's pretty bland. just like share the pathway. It's like a little list of things that. But you can. But apparently, this could be maybe helpful, like prompts or whatever. But but there is apparently it'll create an app. I don't know, Dre, if you've seen that. Got a list of those places. We got from Forbes magazine.
I've seen I've seen what you can do with GPT in helping make an app, but the TLDR is you kind of have to be a programmer, right? It's a great assistive tool to help you plug parts or review your code. But if you don't really have a basic understanding of programming, you're going to be lost. I know I don't know enough. And I started saying like, okay, walk me through the steps of making a Discord bot, and it walked me through the steps. And then you have to say, okay, well, help me install these libraries that you mentioned. And it goes that you can do that. And if you're persistent enough, you'll figure a lot out, but you're going to eventually hit a part where it's not going to, where your lack of understanding can't be made up for by what it can deliver.
I just realized I've got to jump. So
Yeah,
I'll
I'm gonna have
just
to do the
quick
same
one.
too. I gotta go mine some fiat now.
Nice.
Great.
All right. Well, good luck out there.
Thanks.
I got to get to work
Peace.
or something.
Hey guys.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Stay between the ditches.